My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Hey, I'm Jenny LSQ, and this is something a bit different. It's an LSQ replay. I wanted to bring back this interview from 2021 with Baio from Vampire Weekend, in part to celebrate the amazing new Vampire Weekend album, Only God Was Above Us, but also because I was so happy to see how many new listeners found the LSQ podcast thanks to episode 105 with Ezra Koenig from VW. And I hope you'll also enjoy, well, it's the majority of the original interview with Baio, and you can hear the full episode in the feed. I had forgotten that we recorded this on the day of the 2021 presidential inauguration. What a time warp. It's a strange and interesting day historically because we're connecting on Inauguration Day, January 20th, 2021, and I'm just going to go ahead and say I feel huge relief. We made it.
It was, I got up and watched, like about an hour of the inauguration. And I did feel it a bit in the immediate aftermath of the election, like this kind of like weight that had been there, that, the kind of like instability, the fact that a maniac was head of the government that had been, at the very best of times, a kind of like low simmering anxiety. That went away for a couple days after the election, but then it kind of came back as stuff was getting crazy. And I kind of underestimated, how relieved I would feel when the like power had been switched, when someone new came into the office of the presidency. So I, Jenny, am in a good fucking mood today as we talk together.
Awesome. I want to, right from jump, talk about something, not the kind of thing I usually talk about on this podcast, but we have some common interests outside of music. And so I do have to ask how you feel about no Samantha for the Sex and the City reunion. Any thoughts or feelings on that?
I meant to look this up. First off, it's just great. Like, I've been doing interviews pretty regularly since the year turned over, so this is like my third week of having a pretty packed interview schedule. But this is the very first question I've gotten about Sex and the City, which is arguably one of the most important topics that I could discuss with anybody. So I appreciate that. And as you've alluded to, we are part of a since dormant Sex and the City trivia team. But I had listened to this super kind of like long form podcast in like the end of 2018. I never do this during interviews, but it's such a good podcast that I'm gonna have to look it up on my phone while I talk to you.
Yes, please do. I want to give a recommendation to the people.
This is like the best, and it's like 5 hours. Okay, it's like 5 hours on the history of Sex and the City, and the podcast is called Origins, and like they do a different seasons on a different TV show. The first season was on Curb Your Enthusiasm, which I thought that season was okay, but the Sex and the City season is just like absolute masterclass. One of the best podcasts I've ever listened to, and just like you get to sort of like peer behind the curtain of this incredibly iconic show. I'm a big fan of Sex and the City. It got me through kind of like a dark time when I was 18, just because my parents had the DVDs in our basement, so I just like spent like weeks plowing through Sex and the City episodes, and I love this show. But so this podcast, it really gave just like a long, particularly in the last episode, kind of like a long breakdown of how they tried to make a Sex and the City 3 movie, and that, negotiations kind of fell apart, and that Kim Cattrall did not want to be a part of it. And I think it can be tough to think about the fact that business is intertwined with art. Every like public artist, every public facing artist, there is like a business side to it. And sometimes when you like really think about it or wrap your head around it, it's like a bit unseemly. You just think like Sex in the City, it's just, fucking great writing, great acting. Everybody's just showing up. Everybody's getting along. There's like no simmering tension. And I will say in Kim Cattrall's defense, and Jenny, we have actually watched side by side the first two Sex in the City movies. And did the world need a follow-up after Sex in the City 2? I think that we would, as two big fans, would say absolutely not.
Please no.
Apparently, the script for Sex in the City 3 was like great. Michael Patrick King, who was the showrunner starting with the third season, he was like, oh, this is just like a beautiful script. Sarah Jessica Parker loved the script. But there were all these negotiations, and Kim Cattrall didn't want to be a part of it. And so it fell apart. And like, everybody's diplomatic, but they kind of talk around the fact that Kim Cattrall like essentially wanted a lot more money, and there was just like this kind of like falling out between everybody. So like, listening to this podcast, and when I talk about it being like unseemly, it was kind of like hearing about like this couple that you love, this like couple that you hang out with all the time. Maybe they were together for 10 years. You'd go to dinner together, you'd see each other at parties, and then they break up, and you get like, but like having like an inside window into what happened and why that relationship broke up. So it's depressing. It's sad. They're like, it's like the Beatles.
It's like by Let It Be.
It's the Beatles of 90s and 2000s HBO TV shows. And so the fact that Kim Cattrall didn't want to be a part of it, and that everybody else wanted to push along, I'm gonna give it a chance.
The experience of doing the Sex and the City trivia team, and also just as I've gotten to know you better and see the way your fanhoods kind of play out, whether, you know what I mean? Whether it's the burnt thing, for instance, or any number of other deeply personal memes for you specifically, Chris Baio. When did that kind of thing start for you? What was the first thing like that as a human you became fixated on in a way that made so much sense to you?
Oh, God. I think when you, like, share this weird piece of cultural ephemera with someone else, it becomes this kind of, like, secret language. And so the example that you bring up is the movie Burnt, which I saw under very, like, kind of weird circumstances and thought the movie was fucking insane, and then just like found myself on an email chain with two friends. We were talking about something else, and a friend brought up that he had watched Burnt on a plane, and then we just started emailing each other about Burnt, and we couldn't stop talking about that movie because it's an insane movie. And like, then it kind of just became this joke, and then I have like a WhatsApp group with like 8 other people where we just still talk about Burnt. There was like, we were talking, I got messages on my phone maybe 20 minutes before I got on with you about the 2015 failed Bradley Cooper Bad Boy Chef feature Burnt. And like, it is, and I'll put like Instagram stories up about it and like tweets, and like, it's just, nobody knows what the fuck I'm talking about. Very few people I think have seen Burnt, but like, it ends up taking up this like big place in my mind. And I don't know, there'll be like examples when I think back, and I can't even really remember the jokes, but like, just like watching a bad movie at like a friend's house and like picking out lines and like just making like jokes about it. I'm trying to remember anything like super, super specific.
I guess I also just mean more generally, like the kind of joy that you get out of like, just digging into something. I mean, it's it's being a nerd. It's what it is ultimately, where you're just hyper into something to a point that for other people might be uncomfortable. But you're like, that's how into it I am. I don't care. As a kid, what was the first thing that made you feel like, I just need more of this? This is so exciting to me.
Yeah, I guess, okay, I think about like my friends who have kids and stuff like that, and almost like uniformly when their kids are like 2 or 3 years old, they'll tell me that their child is like obsessed with this one movie and just like want to watch the same movie every single day. And like, an example would be, my friend, his daughter was like obsessed with Frozen when that came out, and just like wanted to watch Frozen every single day. And I think there's something kind of like naturally childlike about getting obsessive about something. I think it's like kind of like innate to being human when I think about it in terms of like seeing it through, all my friends' kids. So I think that there can be like a childlike joy to preserving that. Now I'm 36 years old, but like still being obsessive about some random obscure thing. So things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a kid, or like, I was obsessed with Bohemian Rhapsody when I was 7 years old. Just wanted to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody on loop. Even now, if I like really get into a song, I can listen to the same song for like 3 or 4 hours. And I think that like there just is this sort of like, just childlike joy in getting obsessed with one thing, or like, one like work of art.
So going back to Bohemian Rhapsody for a minute, then, as a little dude being obsessed with that song, there's obviously cartoonish elements to it in addition to the musicality, but did that develop into your early music taste?
Yeah, definitely. It would have just been like trickle down stuff from my parents. My dad, like, I know a lot of people when they have kids, they got like my one of my uncles, unbelievable record collection. He let me take a bunch of records from it. I've got like early pressings of Can records, just like an absolutely like impeccable record collection. He went to law school in like 1982. There's like, it just stops right there. And then like he had kids after that. It's just like they're like, for a lot of people, you hit a certain age and you just like are not actively following new music. But my dad was very much not that way, and he like would always, he's a true stone cold Columbia House head, just like, and also would read Spin obsessively. And like I even have memories because I didn't like curse words when I was really young, and so my dad would like read Spin and like get a black ink and just blot out the curse words for me. It was like just like insane to think about, but like
so
really
nice.
Really sweet. But so he would always bring home records, bring home things that he was interested in, and it like always ran a wide gamut. But like Bohemian Rhapsody would be the first thing that I can just remember, like just being in the car and just being like, I love this song. I just want to hear this song over and over and over again. And like, there would be Talking Heads, there'd be plenty of other, like, my dad's favorite musician is Jimi Hendrix. We would listen to so much Jimi Hendrix, but at the same time, he would like, I'd be 10 years old when he would have bought his first Guided by Voices record, and we would have had that on in the house, and just like kind of like always having music around in the house, like reading the Saturday or Sunday paper. That was kind of just how I grew up. So there wasn't like one sort of like defined sensibility. My dad would buy like Tribe Called Quest. My dad would buy Green Day, just like whatever were like kind of like big albums of that time. And so I just, would listen to a fairly wide like gamut for like a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old. And like how it trickles down later when I started playing music is kind of hard to say, but it was it definitely is like a huge reason why I'm a musician today.
When did you start to see music as something that you might do and be interested in playing it, as opposed to just enjoying it always being around?
I started getting piano lessons when I would have been like 9 or 10 years old, and I didn't actively really want to, but my mom like kind of made me and signed me up, and thank you, Mom, you changed my life. But I really took to it. I really liked playing, and kind of at the end of the first year, my teacher at the time told my mom that he thought I could like maybe someday be a professional musician. And like, I don't know, hearing that as a 10-year-old is kind of like all you need. If you're like super, super into playing music and then your teacher thinks you like have what it takes to then play music, that's like, when I just think back and of like an early affirmation, that's the one in my head. Like hearing that at 10 years old, that like it was possible, and that definitely made me like take it even more serious and pursue it more, I guess.
So did you start practicing more seriously, and when did the idea of writing songs on your own begin?
I played piano for another couple years, and then I would have gotten a guitar for Christmas when I was 12, but I didn't really like pick it up in the first year and a half for whatever reason. I don't even know why. I think I was probably just like more focused on piano at that time. But then once I picked it up, took lessons for maybe a year, I just like knew I wanted to play, so I would play in my friend Brian's attic. We would like cover Nirvana songs, like fucking Come As You Are. I'm very curious to people who like pick up guitar now, how often like Come As You Are is that first song that you play. I wonder if it's still that. I mean, it was funny. I know that like Steve Lacy had told Ezra that A-Punk was the first song he learned on guitar, which just like blew my fucking mind in general. But like, I guess some people maybe learn A-Punk as their first song on guitar now, which is mind blowing. For me, that version was definitely Come As You Are. So just playing with my friend Brian, and then like we had a band, started writing. We covered so many songs. And then I started writing songs like shortly thereafter. My first song was like a funk instrumental called Fat Boy Craving, which is just like it's like the kind of song you call like when you're like 13 years old. But I will say, and I'm just talking through this with you, and I still remember like what the guitar riff was to it. But like on this record, the first song, like the back half, I would say has like a lot of funk guitar, and I hadn't really thought of it this way, but it's like my version maybe of like tapping into the first song that I wrote.
When did you, I mean, 13 is super young, but at what point did you start like going to shows or like identifying with, music as being like, I love music, I'm that kid?
Yeah, like way earlier, definitely. My family would go like every summer. I grew up in Westchester, New York. Every summer we'd go to like at least 5 shows at Jones Beach. That was like the kind of like family thing. And I saw so many, like a wide gamut. I would have seen everything from like Lenny Kravitz to Hootie and the Blowfish to Steely Dan to just like to the Cranberries, just like so many.
The Columbia House.
Exactly. Columbia House in concert. Columbia House in concert version, just like every summer at Jones Beach. And the very first concert I went to was when I was 9 years old. It was it was a really killer triple bill. It was, the first band was Cracker, the second band was Gin Blossoms, and then the headliner was Spin Doctors. And
wow,
the first song that Cracker played, it's one off their second record, I think. That's kind of like, it's on the record with Get On This. Like I've listened to that record like maybe a couple years ago. I'm gonna probably listen to it later today after it came up. But like, they opened with a song off that, and like just hearing a kick drum, like hearing a drummer's bass drum through a sound system and feeling it in your chest, it's just this immediate like physical thing. And it's a physical thing in a way that listening to any like recorded music on your house on like average house speakers, it can never achieve that. And so I just knew right away, I love going to concerts. I love this feeling. I love like the physicality of it.
What was the thing that you and your dad like both loved together the most of the music that somehow overlapped? Do you have a shared favorite with him? Or like a concert that was a moment between the two of you?
Well, definitely like Nirvana. Just, we both were like, this shit is fucking incredible. We were both like very, very sad when Kurt died. I remember I played chess as a kid, and like driving home from a chess tournament, just listening to In Utero in the family car, just being like super sad. Those are kind of like ones that I share.
And what about just like more kind of indie leaning music scene? Did you, as you got older and toward college, start like going to, gigs at Mercury Lounge and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. I would go to like punk shows at Knitting Factory in high school, and I would I played Knitting Factory once in high school, which was a like incredible, like fun, exciting achievement for me. Like it was like one of the highlights of high school. But yeah, I would go, and I did college radio, so we would bring bands and book them. There would be so much. I mean, I loved the band Akron Family. I would go see them whenever they played in town. I saw them at Knitting Factory a bunch. WBAR was the radio station I did, and they would have played a show at the West End, which was kind of like a notorious, I don't think I'm being unkind in calling it a bro-y bar, like by Columbia, where I went to school. But we would put on shows at the basement, and like just seeing like really, really good and interesting musical ideas expressed in like a sweaty basement with like 50 other people and just like incredible playing. It was awesome. I was like getting to go to school in the city as a music obsessive. Yeah, it was like the dream.
What do you remember about when you first met the other Vampire Weekend guys? And how quickly did you move into talking about playing music together?
It was very, like, happenstance, in the sense that my roommate my freshman year of college, Gabe Bedoy, who's, like, one of my best friends on the planet, he had been an extra in a production of Romeo and Juliet at school, and two of the other extras were Ezra and Rostam. And so there was this dorm at Columbia called Ruggles that essentially, like, based on, I mean, it really is, like, so coincidental when I like break it down in my head that, like, it's put me on this path in life. But certain dorms, you need, like, the way the rooms are laid out, there'll be like 3 doubles and 2 singles, right? And so you need to assemble a group of people where 6 people are okay with having a roommate, so that way the 2 people can have their single. So usually it ends up being like an upper class person, like up, and I don't mean that in the class system. I mean someone who's a year above you or whatever, and then someone, you need the 6 people to be younger. So Ezra had asked Gabe to kind of like assemble the like 6 people who would be the like lower classmen in this dorm. And so whatever, we just like, you end up like going to this certain place where the housing lottery is, and you sign a paper. And that would have been like the first time I met Ezra, but like I thought he was cool. Like, and then kind of shortly thereafter, maybe like a week later, there was this thing called Collision at the end of the year at Columbia, where like all these like artists, people in the art program would like hang their paintings. It would be like in a kind of like remote area of Brooklyn, and then like musicians would perform. And my friend, another friend of mine from college who was in my year, Eric Lindman, was like playing with Ezra and his band Lone Run, which you're familiar with, certainly, having known us now for whatever 14 years or however many years it's been. But that was Ezra's rap group that Rostam did a lot of production work for, and Chris Thompson played guitar in. And my friend Eric was playing, I think it was the only time he did it, like he played some like electronic music on the side, like making like, blips or whatever out of his keyboard. But I just got there and I saw their last song right when I walked in, and I was just like, this is so fucking fun. This is like such a like joyful approach to music. It's not like dour, self-serious. It's like people just like having a really good time playing music, and the music's really good. It's not like, it's just really good on top of everything else. And I just like, I don't know, I really like that. And so I started, I was living with Ezra, and then I would just start going to their shows kind of like all the time when they played around campus, because I like really, really enjoyed it. And, Rostam would be there, and I would just kind of get to know them. At the same time, like when I first got to college, I thought I would like play in a band and like continue writing music, and that didn't really happen in my first year. I didn't really meet anybody that I would play with. I didn't like feel super driven. By sophomore year, I just like brought my bass guitar to school. I was more a guitar player before that, but I just brought my bass because I was like, maybe there'll be an opportunity. Everybody wants to play guitar. You're like a little bit more useful if you can play bass, because that's a slot that you need in a band. So I had a bass, and Ezra would have heard me practicing down the hall, and I don't know, like a year later when he was putting the band together, he asked if I would play bass at Ding Dong Lounge on 107th Street in Columbus one night, and I said yes, and now I'm here.
Obviously I met you not that long after this story, and I remember just like you guys were so young when we met up for the first time at Mercury Lounge, or at Library Bar.
Yes, hell yeah. Oh yeah, that's I didn't remember where it exactly was. Exactly.
Yeah, and we did an interview for Rolling Stone in the back booth of Library Bar, and then you played a show at Mercury Lounge that was one of, and then I just, would come see you guys play all the fucking time. And it's interesting, obviously, as you say, it's like you can look at these things and it's like, here we are now, almost 15 years later, and everything that's happened has happened. But it sounds like when we look back at this together, you weren't really expecting any of this. Obviously you had spent your life and your childhood and teenage years like getting more proficient at playing all of the instruments, and like you really seriously loved music, but you were in a good school and you were probably thinking about a career in something, right? Or did you have any ideas at that point about a profession you might go into?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I will say, if you'd asked me at 16 if there was anything I could do with my life, it would be to play music. But by the time I got to college, I was like, all right, it's not really going to happen for me. That's fine. There's like plenty of other things. I was going to do 2 years with Teach for America. I had like accepted a job kind of before we got a record deal. I felt a little bit bad when I told them. It was early enough that I don't think I ended up depriving anyone of a spot of having a teacher in the program. But I ended up telling them I can't take it because I'm going on tour. I took the LSAT my senior year. I don't know if I ultimately would have wanted to be a lawyer or liked being a lawyer, but it was something that I at least entertained. But you're right when you say it kind of like it kind of just happened, and it really did. And I think that, like, in a way, the fact that it happened without me like being insanely like aggressive about it, or like just like a maniac, like I have to pursue it, it's like kind of a good way to be. And I think about how we had this very first band practice, and there was this kind of vision of like having a horn section, adding a bunch of people, and like at the end of that first practice, I think Rostam was the one who said, maybe it should just be the four of us. This feels really good. And like, I agree. If it feels really good, it feels really natural. You're not pushing anything as like a baseline. That's kind of like a great way to start in like work and in your life. So I don't know, the fact that it felt good, felt right, has me, I've never questioned since then being a musician. It's like it's funny to think about, I guess.
Do you think that adapting what you had been doing before that with songwriting and with playing music into, when you were still young and impressionable as a musician and songwriter, like into the Vampire Weekend structure, like did it change your approach to your own songwriting or to what kind of music feels good and right to play?
I would say that, I came to college and then I didn't write a song for like 8 years, like a song. So maybe 9 years. I
guess I just mean sort of the larger kind of lessons of, finding your own self as a musician within the context of Vampire Weekend.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say it was like immediately very different because I had been a songwriter in my band. I had been the one who like was kind of running the show. And having done that in high school and then playing in a band where I'm the bass player, I'm trying to like do the absolute best I can to help other people fulfill their vision. Like being on the other side of that, it gave me like more respect for both sides of that equation. And so, just trying to write the best bass line I can, trying to serve the song to the best of my ability was something very, very new for me. But I loved it. I do. And I think that like having a flexibility to work on music in different capacities, like maybe it's related to that kind of openness and like easygoingness with like listening to a bunch of different genres of music from the time I was 7 years old. I don't know, but I've always loved playing in whatever form it takes. So learning how to best fulfill someone else's songwriting vision, it changed me completely. Absolutely.
Well, that seems like a perfect place for us to conclude, Chris.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Jenny, thank you so much for having me. This was an absolute pleasure.
That brings us to the end of this LSQ replay from 2021 with Baio from Vampire Weekend. Thanks so much for listening. You can reach me online on social platforms at JennyLSQ and find other episodes at jennylsq.com.